Hey everyone, it's Types, and today I'm showing off some of the coolest builds of ARCEUS VSTAR. That's right, we're talking about a classic Pokemon here. ARCEUS VSTAR with an attack that accelerates. It does pretty solid damage and accelerates energy to your Pokemon V in any way you like, and its VSTAR power searches your deck for cards. So a very useful and a versatile Pokemon, and very powerful as well. And there have been a lot of people who have played this deck in various creative ways, so I'm just going to show some of them off, mostly for the ideas of the attackers. Most of the trainer cards are pretty normal, but first of all, here we have ARCEUS V with Raikou V. Well, first of all, Bibarel Scrovit. So Bibarel draws till you have 5 cards in hand. Scrovit essentially resets your hand down to 1 card, which is really nice, allowing you to draw even more with Bibarel. And also just does allow you to see another card. But then Raikou V here is a basic lightning attacker. And that's about it. It does draw a card and it hits more for bench Pokemon, but generally it's just a very solid lightning attacker that, if hitting for weakness, will be able to essentially one-shot anything for only 2 energy. That is why you play a card like Raihan, or part of the reason why you play a card like Raihan, so you can use Raikou V easier. And then single strike Urshifu V, hitting 180 here for 3 fighting. It can't attack again, but generally this should be able to one-shot. It should be able to one-shot any Pokemon if you're hitting it for weakness. Pokemon like ARCEUS V-Star, Lugia V-Star, or not Lugia V-Star, but ARCEUS V-Star, Miraidon EX, Regieleki VMAX. There are a number of Pokemon you hit for weakness. And lastly, Drapion V here, a dark type that essentially attacks for free if you're against Mew VMAX, and also being dark type, it does hit weakness on Gardevoir EX. So if you're able to power its attack up for, you do need 4 energy, but you can pay that with double turbo energy and regular energy. Keep in mind, if you have 4 double turbo energies or 2 double turbo energies on, you will not be one-shotting Gardevoir EX. But if you just have 1 plus some other energies, you can do that. So Drapion V here, mostly countered to Mew VMAX, but also countered Gardevoir EX. This is very much a counter-based Arceus deck. This is something we see floating around a bit. This isn't anything crazy here, but the Urshifu is not something usually played. Galarian Zapdos V is usually played instead, but Single Strike Urshifu V does hit more damage, which can definitely be more relevant against not weakness hitting matchups, and it does not require your opponent to be playing lots of Pokemon V either. Next up, we have this build, again with the same Bibarel Scrovit engine. This is actually a very simple build, playing the only other Pokemon here being Radiant Charizard, which you can't even power up, so you're just powering up your ARCEUS V-Stars, and then you have Path to Peak to disrupt your opponent. And then Radiant Charizard here doing 250, but if you're down on prizes, you don't need to be down on prizes, but for each prize your opponent's taken, its attack costs 1 less, 1 colorless less. It starts off for 5 energy, 4 of those are colorless, the 5th being fire. So of course this list plays fire energy as essentially the only type of energy. But then we do see V-Guard energy for tankiness, and I don't remember if the other list we looked at plays V-Guard energy. It does. Many of the lists here play V-Guard Energy, which quite simply reduces the amount of damage you take from Pokemon V. And this list does as well. Radiant Charizard can survive hits, although it cannot attack back-to-back turns. So we do see this list running cards like Switch and Escape Rope to allow you to stream attacks when that is necessary. And we do see the Raihan and Magma Basin accelerating energy to Radiant Charizard can be nice as well. Next up, we have another list. This one also runs Radiant Charizard, but we see it running a wider variety of things. But we do not see the Bibarel engine. Instead, we just see the deck relying on ARCEUS V-Star's V-Star power once during the game, and then a Lumineon V once, maybe twice during the game, allowing you to search for a supporter when you play it. And then we do see this list, of course, running with the Radiant Charizard Fire Energy. We see a Magma Basin as well. Then we also see Collapse Stadium and a Water Energy to allow you to get Lumineon V off the field. If you attack with it, it goes back into your deck, allowing you to reuse it. And we see the Drapion V, again, a counter option in Espeon VMAX here, which you can attack with for Psychic Energy. First of all, its ability means your Pokemon with energy are immune to effects. So that means stuff like Giratina V-Star, which is generally kind of scary because it could one-shot you. For just instantly KO you, now cannot do that because Espeon VMAX will just block that. And also, we do see that it has the attack that punishes your opponent for having lots of energy in play in mirror matches. Against ARCEUS V-Star versus ARCEUS V-Star, Espeon VMAX can decide the winner of the match because it does 60 for each energy your opponent has in play. So that can get really big. And then Pumpkaboo here also allows you to bump stadiums easier and play more different ways around Path to the Peak. And because we have this array of Psychic cards, we can play Fog Crystal, which is a really neat inclusion. Again, generally this list looks pretty similar, but it's still cool. And then moving on to one that's a bit different. This one is a fire list again, playing Radiant Heat Train instead, which does 70 for each damage counter on this Pokemon. It does take 3 energy. But the idea here is you accelerate to it with Magma Basin and use Armor Rouge here to move fire energy from your bench Pokemon to your active Pokemon as often as you like. This does have synergy, mild synergy with Sharon's Care, but more importantly, you can accelerate your energy to your bench Pokemon in any way you like. Pokemon Vs, of course, with Arceus, but then just move them to your active Arceus or to your other Pokemon. Entei V is the same thing as Raikou V, a very solid attacker, like generic attacker. But then Heatmore here, for 3 it does 90. For 1, it does accelerate energy to itself, but then for 6, it does 90 to the active, 180 to one of your opponent's benched, which is really nice and can definitely win you games if your opponent is not playing any bench barrier type of card, which most of these lists you see do not. Some do. Honestly, I'd say a lot of decks do, but Arceus decks don't. So if they don't play Manaphy, you can do the Heatmore, accelerate the energy to the other Pokemon, move it on to the Heatmore. A really nice combination, allowing you to have a lot of versatility. Again, no room for an engine, so we do see Trekking Shoes here, trying to kind of make up for that. And with a wide variety of basic Pokemon, we do see a Sui and Heavy Ball, allowing you to get your basic Pokemon out of the prize cards. And generally, of course, the other stuff is pretty normal here with Fire Energy and Double Turbo Energy. But this is more of a this is honestly the best Armor Rouge deck I've ever seen. If you want to play Armor Rouge, this is a really cool way to play it. There are other ways, but this way is very solid. Next up, we have, going in the opposite direction, we have Alolan Vulpix VSTAR. If you don't know what this card does, it's super good right now. And it does 160 for watercolorless color, so pretty payable. And of course, water type is nice because it has Melanie, which this list does not run, but you can run things like Melanie. And then it's immune to damage by Pokemon with abilities next turn, and it also hits through effects on your opponent's Pokemon. Additionally, Silvery Snow Star, your V-Star power is free. It is 70 for each of your opponent's Pokemon V they have in play. And it does not hit for weakness. But this is very nice because it allows you to just do big damage if your opponent's playing tons of Vs. It allows you to wall off decks, notably like Gardevoir EX, and to some extent Miraidon EX, and also just allow you to hit through Pokemon like Duraludon VMAX, I suppose. Hitting through effects isn't that useful right now, but it's still a nice thing to have, as well as Miltank, which doesn't see too much play. We do see Radiant Greninja as the Radiant of choice to give you more power. This is a very straightforward build. I would like to see another Sharon's Care in this style of list, but we see High Counts of Judge, allowing you to punish your opponent and then combo into them with Path to the Peak or Lost City, depending which suits the match better, usually Path to the Peak, to disrupt them a lot. And so this is a very powerful, very disruptive base deck. We also see Thornton here, allowing you to, I'll read it out actually. So you choose a basic Pokemon in your disco pile and switch it with a basic Pokemon you have in play. And then you keep all effects on, meaning that if one of your, like say your Alolan Vulpix V's KO'd, which you only run one of, and no Hisuian Heavy Ball, which I might like to see here as well. But if your Alolan Vulpix V gets KO'd, you can switch it with another V you had in play last turn, and then evolve it immediately again once it's put into play with Thornton. And so that's pretty solid. As I said, a Melanie could be good here, but we see Raihan to accelerate energy, and Serena, which is a pretty solid card in like general if you can fit it in, because it kind of replaces Boss Orders, kind of replaces Professor's Research. And aside from that, everything else is pretty straightforward. Next up, we have another list. It does run Alolan Vulpix V-Star again, but then it also runs Corviknight VMAX in this Altaria line. I'll talk about Altaria real quick. For 2 colors on a stage 1, easily payable with double turbo energy. You essentially, it says you move all damage counters on one of your bench Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon, meaning you completely heal off one of your bench Pokemon. That's why we don't see Sharon's Care in this list. Of course, you need to get that Pokemon to the bench. You can just retreat oftentimes, or you could switch. You do see Path to the Peak as well to disrupt your opponent, hoping they won't be able to capitalize on this too much. And then, of course, healing off and moving that damage is very nice, so I think this Altaria is a very solid option. And then we also see Corviknight VMAX, a really tanky Pokemon here. And it has an ability that says it's immune to Pokemon abilities, effects of Pokemon abilities done to this Pokemon from your opponent, which is quite useful. But additionally, it has its attack here, G-Max Hurricane, doing 240 for Metal colorless, which is a pretty solid attack. You can't use that attack next turn, but it does have free retreat, giving it pretty solid synergy with the Altaria. and of course the Alolan Vulpix VSTAR. And again, this list looks pretty similar and very simple. A lot of Arceus lists are very simple, but they have new ideas. You can put in various ideas relatively easily. That's what makes Arceus so good. Next up, we have a straight Corviknight deck with Bronzong, allowing you to move your Metal Energy around any way you like. And then we see Cheryl, allowing you to heal off your Evolution Pokemon. This is very good, kind of like Sharon's Care, but even better with Bronzong because you don't need to scoop up the Pokemon back into your hand. That's why we see slightly thinner counts of Arceus, and Corviknight's a moderately thin count as well. We see the Barrel Squova engine, as well as Radiant Gardevoir, Leafy Camo Poncho as well, which is a really interesting tool card here. This says whenever your opponent plays a supporter from their hand, prevent all effects of that card done to the Pokemon V-Star or V-Max this card is attached to. Pretty much it stops your opponent from gusting up your bench Pokemon V-Max or V-Star. So you can retreat your Corviknight to the bench, and then you don't have to Cheryl immediately. You can get big value out of Cheryl. And then we see Path to Peak Lost City again with Judge for Disruption. Although this deck's probably a bit more awkward to set up, I think it's a very solid one as well. And one I very well may want to try out because it looks really cool. Next up, we have these last two are actually the most spicy. So other than maybe that fire one, and some of the Corviknight ones are cool too. I mean, they're all cool, but this is Greedent VMAX. That's right. Everyone's favorite Pokemon VMAX with Turn or Profit for 2 colorless energy on a stage 1. If your opponent's basic Pokemon is knocked out by damage from this attack, take 2 more prize cards, which is pretty insane. You can this can be just very good if you just KO, say, 2 Comfreys. And the idea is, in fact, to KO Comfreys most likely, or a similar Pokemon with Cleansing Gloves, increasing the damage that you do to Psychic Pokemon, as well as Vitality Man doing a straight 10 more damage. Radiant Blastoise allows you to chip away at your opponent's Pokemon on the bench, and pairing if you discard Water Energy, which you can pair with Melanie. Like Acuity, reducing your the damage you take is quite nice as well. If you have Water or Fighting, the 2 types of energy we play in this list. And also Gland Zapdos V, which I mentioned earlier. Its attack costs less for each Pokemon V your opponent has in play, allowing it to do 170 and discarding a special energy, which can be super useful. And that's for only 1 fighting if they have 3 Pokemon Vs in play. And we don't play Path to the Peak, so that should always be active. Drapion V I mentioned earlier. It's kind of Mew VMAX. And then the good old Arceus, Barrel, no Squova here, but we do see Dunsparce, which is a bit interesting, reducing Galarian Zapdos V's viability sometimes. But then we also have Arvan, allowing you to search out your tools, which is generally not super common, but it's nice with Cleansing Gloves in this list in particular. And then Sharon's Care for the healing. Melanie, which I said I really liked, and that's played in this list. Judge for the disruption. Toy Catcher, allowing you to gust. This is actually a really interesting card. We only see 1 boss's orders, and then it runs a clearer. But Toy Catcher says it's an item. You pretty much gust up one of your opponent's men's Pokemon with 50 HP or less. This is super useful because those are the Pokemon you can target down with Greedent. So there's perfect synergy with that. And I just honestly really think this card's super cool and really like it. Moving on to our final list, this is a Duraludon VMAX list, which I talked about a little earlier, often paired with Arceus, and then possibly Alolan Vulpix V-Star Umbreon, but I want to show something off a bit more creative. This is actually what inspired me to make this video. Duraludon VMAX hits through effects and walls special energy, but we also see Rock Chest Plate and Fighting Energy for Santakana VMAX, a really cool card here that has an attack that does 60 for 1 fighting on a stage 1, and then 20 to each your opponent's bench Pokemon. So really solid spread here. G-Max Cyclone for fighting colorless, allowing you to move your energy around it any way you like. So this is really nice. You compare it with, this list doesn't run Cheryl, but you can heal. You can heal with Volo in this list. You can heal with Sharon's Care instead as well. Sharon's Care only heals Arceus, and Volo can heal any of your Pokemon Vs by discarding them completely. And then Adventurous Discovery is also a neat card, allowing you to search your deck for any number of Pokemon Vs. We see then other generic card counts, but Rock Chest Plate does reduce the damage you take, so that's quite nice. We see Radiant Alakazam and Hawlucha, allowing you to target your opponent's Pokemon through this use of spread as well. So this list is one of the coolest, I think, because it has the Santakana VMAX, but I'm interested in hearing what you have to say, what you think about Arceus, especially in the next set. It's a really interesting Pokemon because it's versatile and powerful. It can really hold its own, but I'm looking forward to what other people are going to do with it. I'm super excited, but I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm excited to see you in the next one. This is a smaller one. I'll have possibly another video coming out around the same time. But I hope you enjoyed. And if you enjoyed, I'd really love it if you subscribed. I've said this before. I'm trying to reach 400 subscribers by the end of the month. A big goal, but if I get there, I'll be super happy. And I'm working on some other higher quality videos, and I hope you enjoyed those. I don't know how long it'll take and if I'll ever be able to get them done, but I really hope so. And I really appreciate everyone for sticking with me. So thank you all, and see you in the next video.